All right, so welcome to science fiction, at least for now, which is one of the more threatening panel titles, especially if you've read these authors' books. Let's see. My name is Matt. I'm one of the owners of Mysterious Galaxy, and I'm very honored to. Yeah. Thank you. Very honored to be here with this panel, which is essentially the staff picks shelf of Mysterious Galaxies. So let me do a brief introduction in no particular order except how I have them on my page. Pierce Brown. Is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of the Red Rising series. His work has been published in 33 languages and 35 territories. Wonder what the overlap is. He lives in LA.
So much disrespect.
Look, yes, yeah. Next up we have Emma Mieko Candon. Best-selling queer author who writes about devouring ghosts, cursed linguistics, and mediocre robots. Her previous novel, Star Wars Visions Ronin, reimagined the Star Wars mythos through a Japanese lens. Editor by day, escaped academic by night, she is at all hours beholden to the whims of 2 lopsided cats and grateful for the support of an enviably handsome wife. No hard words in your bios, please. And, oh, give it up for her. Next we have Nnedi Okorafor, a Nigerian-American author of African-based science fiction, fantasy, and magical realism for children and adults. Her works include The Desert Magician's Duology, with Shadow Speaker being re-released in September, nor Who Fears Death, currently in development at HBO. Am I allowed to say? I'm not part of SAG or anything. That's fine. The Binti novella trilogy, The Book of Phoenix, the Akata books, and Lagoon. She is the winner of Hugo, Nebula, World Fantasy, Locus, and Lodestar Awards, an Eisner Award nominee, and her debut novel, Zara the Windseeker, won the prestigious Wool Soyanaka Prize for Literature. You don't carry all those around with you, right? That would be exhausting. Next up, we have Charles Soule. The New York-based, New York Times bestselling novelist, which feels like a real hometown advantage. Comic book writer, musician, former attorney. He is the author of some of the most prominent comic stories of the last decade for Marvel, DC, Lucasfilm, and a groundbreaking run on Daredevil, the mega bestsellers Death of Wolverine and Darth Vader, and a run on She-Hulk that served as the inspiration for something. In addition, he works as a creative consultant for Lucasfilm. Is it Limited? Is that what LTT stands for?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never actually thought about that and had to say it out loud. And is the writer of the acclaimed creator-owned comic series 8 Billion Genies, Undiscovered Country, Letter 44, and Curse Words. His novels are The Endless Vessel, Anyone, and Oracle Year. Thanks very much. And last but certainly not least, we have Martha Wells. You guys are a good audience. Who has written many fantasy novels, including The Wizard Hunters, Wheel of the Infinite, the books of the Roxura series, beginning with The Cloud Roads and ending with The Harbors of the Sun, and the Nebula-nominated The Death of the Necromancer, as well as YA fantasy novels, short stories, and nonfiction. Her New York Times and USA Today best-selling Murderbot Diaries series has won the Hugo, Nebula, Locus, and Alex Awards. All right. Let's ask questions. All right, let's start with a super light one. We're going through a really weird time marked by mistrust of experts, rampant disinformation, the rise of pseudoscience. Scientific expertise in particular is being questioned more than I've ever experienced in my lifetime, which is, I'm not going to say how long. We'll start with Charles, but this is for everyone. What is it like writing science fiction in an age of science friction?
Very good. You should be writing the books.
My wife would die if she heard you clap for that joke.
I actually think in some ways it's very useful, right? Because science fiction, if it's good, I think it's reflecting the time in which it's written. It's something that's relatable because it is talking about things you already know or feel deep in your heart, even though the topics are fantastical or out there or sort of all over the place. And so right now, we're writing about the things we're worried about, the things we're afraid of, the things that we think are going to change the world, maybe not for the best or not for the better. So in terms of specifically like the anti-science bias, I think the best thing that science fiction can do to combat that is to make science seem as incredible as it actually is. And so whenever I'm writing a story that has scientific elements, I take great pains to get them right and show them in amazing ways. I talk to experts. I just make it as wonderful as it is. And then if people don't want to read it, if people don't want to like educate themselves, that's kind of not my problem. I've done my best. So that's what I would say.
And anyone else who wants to jump in, please, from this side.
Sure. Okay. No, please.
Yeah.
After you.
Yeah, you hope that your work will make people excited about science. You hope that it will make people think. The things that worry me are when people ask about the corporations and the Murderbot diaries, and their kind of attitude is like, why do you think this is going to happen in the future? And people say things like, oh, they should get a union, and you're like, this is not things, this is all based on reality happening now, basically. And I really want people to think about that. So yeah, I mean, I hope that's what our work does.
Yeah, I think it's important to make, for lack of a better expression, science sexy. And what I kind of mean by that is it's not a lot of people are going to sign up for a deep theoretical discussion at DARPA about where science is going, but perhaps they will sign up to watch or read a story. And I think science fiction and fantasy have always had that ability of allowing people to enter into a story and not counter-argue the same way we do in our normal world. If you have your political beliefs and someone contradicts them, you know, our egos are really geared up to defend and shut down and disagree, because it's kind of central to our, you know, what we think of ourselves or how we think about our self-identity. But you enter into a fictional world and all of a sudden you're going by the rules that are established by the author or by the director. And I think that you know, science fiction and fantasy have never been more important for that reason, because they allow people to explore opinions that are not theirs in subjects they probably may not find if it weren't attached to a story.
Yeah, no, I think that's so 100% correct, because the way to access the points where people are vulnerable to intaking and processing information is really through their emotional availability. And you're not really going to get that in any public debate as it exists today, especially not when we're in such a high tension fractional state as a society. But reaching them through narrative just opens up more doors. And also it has given me the opportunity to complain about AI, which is funny because like I started writing my book, which has AI stuff in it, like 5 years ago, and now AI stuff is being debated constantly, which is great because I get to air a lot of grievances. But like essentially what I wanted to do was pick apart the fact that a lot of people, for some reason, in my psychology department were talking about the singularity like it was gonna happen. And everything I knew about, one, neurology and how brains actually work, coupled with everything I knew about machine learning and how algorithms work, they were like completely divergent paths. So I wanted to start working on a story that was grappling more with the idea of like what artificial consciousness based on actual human cognitive architecture would look like. But yeah, so like I think story is the opportunity to do that because one, super engaging, super fun, put a laser in it, people are gonna be really excited. But also because that is the opportunity to really speak to people and to like get it deep into their heart.
Yeah, everything everyone else has said so far. But I think what I'd want to also add to the conversation is that what I find really enjoyable about writing this stuff right now is that closeness. You know, you can bring the story just feels so relevant. I think that readers can kind of connect to a lot of these ideas that we're talking about already, so there's that. But for me as a writer, it's all happening now. A lot of the things that felt far away, they're so immediate now. And so writing about that closeness, in a lot of ways writing about it as it's happening is just really exciting and just fun. And then secondly, just this idea of, I'm always concerned with looking at things from a negative perspective all the time. Like that need to be like, okay, AI is coming, let's look at it from this perspective. And there's a reason for that, and that makes complete sense. But I also think there's a necessity for looking at things from a more positive perspective as well. So looking at these things as they're happening and when they're really close to us, but having the opportunity to explore what it is, if these things if these things move in a positive direction. I think that's important. I think people need to hear that, because I think that inclination to look at things from a negative standpoint is just so overpowering, and there's no balance. So I feel like being someone who writes these narratives and explores these ideas now, I think that's something that that we can really contribute.
So my next question is about that negative standpoint. I would also like to add, though, that we should replace put a pin in it with put a laser in it. That sounds way cooler.
It's about time.
But yeah, so for you, Nnedi, and then for everyone else, so all of these stories grapple with power structures, the ones that shape and define our lives in sort of transparent and often mundane ways, but are incredibly influential in how we live, whether it's corporatism or religion or just particular ideologies that shape how we view the world. So how has the genre of science fiction allowed you to interrogate those power dynamics?
I mean, you know, that's a lot. That's a lot. But I mean, I haven't read every single thing that's out there, so there's that. But I think that you know, I mean, coming back to what I was saying earlier about being able to imagine things moving in a more positive direction. I've read science fiction that does that, and I think it definitely has an evening out effect. I don't know. Let's hear what other people have to say. I'm not, you know.
So I was thinking really acutely about power. I think it's something that I'm kind of anxious about on a structural level as well as an interpersonal level, so it just sort of seeps out into the kinds of stories I like to write. And in this one, when I talk about like AI gods or divine AIs, it means that I was also grappling with capitalist AI doomsday mythology, which is this idea that we're going to create these machines that are going to treat our human bodies in the way that capitalists treat our human bodies. And so what was kind of important to me was like having friction with that in the sense of like, well, here are these entities that do have an ability to influence the world that surpasses that of any individual human, but if they're thinking in acutely human ways, they're not inherently capitalist, but they can still exert power over individuals. And that can be good. and it can be bad, and there have been a lot of consequences of that. But I was really just like interested in exploring this idea of power, and I think the book is kind of cynical about it in a way that I'm trying to almost argue with in the sequel, because I think when we think of the word power, it often has that negative connotation. But I think there's a lot to be said about the fact that you need a degree of influence in order to protect those who are vulnerable. So yeah, no, I'm thinking about it a lot, and I don't really have a strict answer.
I think, yeah, it's kind of hard because it's so it's so inherent in everything in our society. Like, there's a lot in Murderbot about bodily autonomy and just even doing good things for people without their consent is not is just as stressful as people trying to do bad things to you. And just these ideas of that we seem to be grappling with now. That was weird. Freaked me out a little. Yeah.
That's the pro-corporate crowd.
Yeah. I hope that wall is really strong. But yeah, just trying to grapple with that and maybe give people, again, something to think about along those lines in the decisions you make. And also, I think the kind of going into what Nnedi said, the positive aspects is showing the resistance to those structures, and that it's not something everyone has to buy into, and that there are places to go. Just even with fantasy is showing, in my book that just came out, showing what
Distracting.
I'm trying not to take it personally.
I think it's making it more compelling. You have a soundtrack now.
Yeah. But showing like fantasy cities that can also have, universal health care and mass transportation and the kind of things that that we want now that a lot of us don't have, and trying to give people a positive path to think and to show how to resist those structures.
Yeah, I find myself curious about, a lot of what you guys have said resonates, but I find myself curious with how advances in technology informs power structures in science fiction particularly. Because the idea is kind of you change one fundamental, or you can change one scientific advancement or give one definitive change. Like for me, it's like biomodification, which they're doing with CRISPR now, gene editing. And seeing then how that changes society. So it's like, we'll change one thing, and how does it then fundamentally change the human condition? And not just the human condition, but culture. And culture is basically about how humans organize ourselves, right? Which is very fascinating to me, because attached to that then is the founding myths, and because societies are held together, like Yuval Harari's book, Sapiens and Homo Deus explored it very well. Societies are bound together by common myths, and those common myths that people agree upon, ours is like the founding fathers, some the romantic aspects like Paul Revere. We have these founding myths that hold us together in a culture, but then how does that culture then change, and how does the power structure change with the advent of one new thing? For instance, the tech world. How is the accretion of billionaires in America changing our fundamental structure of our society? And that's a very sci-fi thing. It's very megacorp, right? Consolidation of power. And so it's like, all this is, I think, just to say that we like exploring these themes, and I think it's sometimes you can go about it from a cultural angle. I like looking into the founding myths angle, and more so than the technology. I like my technology kind of be declared at the onset and then doesn't change throughout, because I think that's the new world I'm bringing you into. And then kind of studying the things about humans that I see have always been true. And that's what I find very interesting about science fiction and fantasy in general, is saying what is I'm not critiquing our current culture, I'm trying to find the things that, you know, are on that wheel of time, so to speak, and continue to be proven true despite changes in technology, despite advances in, I don't know, human rights and things like that. Very nebulous answer, but
a good one.
Thank you. But I didn't get a cheer. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
No, not from you guys. I want them.
Yeah, that's I know you're doing a good job. If the other room is excited.
The other room. Martha killed it.
So, as far as I'm concerned, when you're writing any kind of story, but particularly in science fiction and fantasy, I think you need to grapple with the idea that we are all, as individuals, feeling less and less powerful every day that goes by, because there is an accretion of power in like the hands of billionaires, but there's also, have you guys ever heard of there's a theorist named Timothy Morton who came up with this idea of hyperobjects? Anybody familiar with that? It's super cool, also very scary, but I'll explain it to you, so get ready. So the idea is that a hyperobject is a thing. So think of it like this conceptual thing, gigantic and unable to get your arms around it, unable to fully comprehend in all its reality, but yet that still has dramatic and specific effects on your life. So some examples of hyperobjects that used to exist in the old days would be like the monarchy or the weather. Like you can't do anything about them, but they hypothetically could really, really change your life. But now there are starting to be more and more and more of them, and you can probably think of some right now. Climate change, the rising billionaire class, the algorithm on Amazon that somehow tells you what you want, AI, there are, you know, the political unrest. All of these things are hyperobjects that have the potential to really flip our entire lives upside down, kill us even at any moment, and we can't do anything about it. And we know we can't, and even though we don't really articulate that, we feel it. We feel it here, we feel it here, and it's influencing all the things that we do. And so that is why people are trying to exert control over the things that they have within their arms, right? Within their local communities, within their families, within the people that they interact with, the people they bitch at on the internet, okay? It's all about trying to feel some measure of control in these power structures that we have no control over. So, kind of creepy, kind of dark. I didn't love thinking about it when I started thinking about it, but now I get to write about it. And in the new book that I have out, which is part of why I'm here, it's called The Endless Vessel. And part of what happens in it, in the sort of the first act of the book, is a lot of people all over the world have come to the realization that holy shit, we're kind of like, holy heck, we're just about done here. Like the hyperobjects have kind of like taken everything away from us, and so this worldwide kind of gloom descends on everybody. And so then the story though is about the people who say no. There is a way back. There is a way to find individual power and agency within sort of all of these other things that are taking control of our lives. And I found it personally very like cathartic to write a story that was about retaking control when there's no way to retake control. And I think that's the magic trick that science fiction writers do all the time. It's not an uncommon thing to have a powerless person become powerful in a way that's satisfying in science fiction. And so I'm glad we're all doing it. I think we all need it. And I think you guys hopefully will enjoy reading it and all the stuff we're going to do in the future. Woo! Thanks.
So one of the central preoccupations with all of your books is how technology interrupts or subverts our understanding of what it means to be human. I always think of the Tyrell Corporation's motto of their replicants are more human than human in Blade Runner. So technology in your guys' books can be used to perfect humans through bioengineering, to replicate them, to augment and rebuild, and to surpass them. So how has writing your science fiction reshaped or informed your view of what it means to be human? So really light questions. We're going to get to
So down there wants to take it? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll start with Martha.
Yeah. Poor Martha.
That was a great eye roll. Thank you.
I'm not sure it has reshaped my view. I think it's probably kind of crystallized a lot of things and made me maybe confront a lot of things I kind of had floating around in my consciousness. I know writing Murderbot has basically made me understand myself a lot better. So I think that's been basically a big thing for me. I don't think it's altered any opinions I didn't already have. I'm kind of a cynical person, so one thing, I think it's more the reaction to it that's been the people who didn't get that the whole thing with constructs and Murderbot was slavery was probably shouldn't have been shocking. It was still shocking, even though I was kind of like, I sort of expected it, but it's really you expect something and then it happens, you're like, holy crap. That kind of thing. So yeah, it's, you're asking really hard questions.
I can get to the easy ones. I don't know if you're gonna like that.
I can actually speak about this from, I came into writing specifically this book in the context of becoming what I like to call like an actual cyborg, because I have body parts that I did not grow. But you know, that was in part because I was really, really convinced by Donna Haraway's writing on the Cyborg Manifesto, which is this theory, very basically, that we as humans became defined by more than just our flesh bodies the moment we started doing tool use. And then this got complicated by the fact of like ideas of ownership and gifting. So say this jacket is still my jacket when I leave the room. And if my wife gave it to me, it would have not just associations of me, but her upon it, if you knew about those. So this idea that humans are extended beings was something I was already bringing to the book. But when I realized a couple drafts in that I was also like thinking really a lot about the way that becoming catastrophically ill and then like rebuilding my selfhood was something I was exploring in the context of that book. It's just, yeah, it's not surprising to me that it became like a sci-fi metaphor. I think there are definitely metaphors you could reach for in the language of fantasy, but it was not shocking to me that I started reaching for robots to start like working through these thoughts. And I hear you like feeling resonance here, so I'm interested in what you have to say.
Very similar, you know, arriving at this question of what it is to be human, very similar with disability. And, you know, for me, it was, it's a long story, but it's waking up paralyzed, and I was an athlete, and then I had spinal surgery for my scoliosis, and something went wrong with it. So I went from being this mega athlete to being in a hospital bed, paralyzed from the waist down. And they didn't know if I would ever walk again, and they didn't know why. And so that was where the questioning of body and who, like the idea of identity, and that question of what is human. Like, what makes me human? Is it this flesh that I have? Okay, half of it just disappeared. Am I still human? And so like that questioning began with that. And then since then, I've been like looking at technology, because when I had my surgery, they also put a metal rod that's lashed against my spine. So I'm basically cyborg as well. Yes, exactly. So these questions of like what is human, and like where I started arriving over time, and this is over decades of interrogating this question, is like this idea of, I started thinking of, why do we even need a definition for what is human? Why is that so important? We don't really need a definition. And then also this idea of the fluidity of it. Maybe this idea is there's a spectrum and there's a fluidity to it, and that's okay. You know, and so that's really, my novel Noor is really where I just was like, okay, I'm gonna really explore this. We have a character who has all of these disabilities, and she she gets all of these cybernetic parts. So like a lot of cybernetic parts, and so she's not majority machine, but a large part of her is machine. And then that question of, is she still human? You know, that runs throughout the novel, and I think that's something that's going to become more and more relevant. I have ideas about that question. I have ideas about it because I'm like, I'm not completely against machinery. I don't have, like, you know, someone having cybernetic legs or whatever. I'm not anti that. I come from a Nigerian family. I'm Nigerian, and in Nigerian culture, like, what you were born with is very important. So if you have an arm that's not working, you know, and for some reason, to have that arm is a privilege. You know, for me, I'm thinking, well, you know, why not just replace the arm with a robotic arm? Like, what's wrong with that? So I'm like interrogating that. I'm having that conversation back and forth, and I understand the cultural aspects of it, and what that means. But then I also understand my own ideas. So like, these are conversations that I'm having, and I find them very exciting. I don't find them, they're not off-putting at all. They're not like, it's not a, I don't see it as a negative thing. I think it's a really interesting conversation. I think it's a really interesting question to ask, what is human? But like, there's always a negative direction to go with these conversations. There's always and I see, when I look at the conversation of what is human and who is human and what makes us human, we keep going in that direction as opposed to just, you know, kind of embracing all of the possibilities. I mean, and so, yeah, I can keep going, but that's really, it's really something that it's a question that I like asking. It's a question that I enjoy asking. It's not a doomsday question as it often is in a lot of other contexts.
Yeah.
Do you want to go? Okay. I have a spin on this that I actually think is pretty positive. I don't think of it as a doomsday thing at all. I think it's, for me, it's relatively easy to define what is human, because I think humans help, I think humans hurt, I think humans create, and I think humans love, and they do those four things with intention, right? It's not by accident. We do those things because we choose to do them, and we have the ability to do them. And nothing else right now that we know of can do those things. And so again, with intention, right? Obviously, there are plenty of things that can help us. So technology just augments those things. It augments our ability to help. It augments our ability to hurt, so on and so forth. So adding body parts to humans, changing body parts out, swapping things out, I don't think any of that takes away from the fundamental humanity that we embody. I think the issue comes when you start to, or that the question that should be discussed and thought about is when you start to create entities that have the capability to do those things as well. And I am specifically talking about AI, like models that will do things that seem like they are similar to what we are talking about and define as human. And that, I think, takes away some essential qualities that are human, and I personally don't think we should be quick to replace them, because that starts to, then that's when things get sort of squidgy. But I don't think having awesome cybernetics, I really want awesome cybernetic stuff. I think that'd be super cool.
I think the interrogation that I focus a little bit more on than what is human is when do we stop being human? So we talked about, what were the things you said? We help, we hurt, we love, and we create, right? But we also die. And so if we don't die, then do we continue to be human? Say, for instance, that's kind of the interrogation that I think is more fascinating for me personally. For instance, you know, like 50 years from now, maybe we're uploaded to, you know, whatever heaven you believe in, instead of actually dying. And then I wonder what that does to the human condition more so than I think about, you know, robots per se. I don't know, just a little different.
All right, so let's get to the easy ones. I've got 16 more questions. 15 of them are a game. It's very quick, and then we'll get to all y'all's questions if you have them. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. This game is called Don't Throw Out the AI Baby with the Coolant Bathwater. I'm going to name 15 trendy, up-and-coming technologies that are defining 2023 according to a random website I Googled. But this is what the technologists do. So you're going to give a thumbs down if you say, of course, everything is great, but I'm making you commit. Saying, just, no, get it out of here, no thank you, not today, not tomorrow. Out with the bathwater. Thumbs up. Yeah, sure, that's probably fine. Like, on the balance, we're cool with it. Or a shrug is who could possibly know what or who that even is. Because I don't ask me what some of these are. All right, here we go. Artificial intelligence and machine learning. All right, that was not the answer I was thinking. ChatGPT in particular.
What's the context?
Right,
No context.
Yeah, I mean,
You just
Like for what?
right.
Is it
For
like,
nothing.
The application
Just in
is
general.
the
in
center.
general? Okay.
It's hard.
hard.
You guys-
I want to change my AI answer.
Right, like, it's great for building schedules. It is
Right.
not good at telling stories.
You guys just play the game. You got 3 options: shrug, down, or up.
I have never been able.
Write a book about it.
Multiple choice is not my skill set.
You guys are the futurist emperors of the technology coliseum here. Okay?
Summon your inner Commodus.
Kill it.
Robotic process automation. All right, okay. Buy jobs.
Socialism.
Edge computing. Shrug, yeah. Anyone in IT in here?
Help.
Yeah. One person. Quantum computing, which sounds cooler. Oh, yeah, because that, yeah. Virtual reality. You guys are all on Meta still?
It's there. No, I mean like it's not good, but it's
Yeah,
interesting.
That sounds like a shrug.
Exactly.
Sounds like a shrug, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just worried if they get rid of all these things, they won't have anything to write about. Blockchain.
Oh, blockchain.
Blockchain.
That's good.
Shrug.
Waiting for them to
It's
have
awesome.
an
It's just being
application.
used stupidly.
Internet of Things.
What was that?
Wait, say that?
IoT. Internet of Things.
Oh no! Don't do that! Don't do that! Don't do that!
That's where your refrigerator reports on you to Amazon.
Yes.
The corporations have
Yeah,
control of that
yeah.
shit. Don't do it.
I'm a Luddite on that one.
Okay,
No.
that's a no. Everyone's Alexas are all dusty right now. 5G.
Huh?
5G.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
Can't wait for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I need my
Any minute now, we'll have 5G.
yeah.
That was a
I need
that
my
was a
4K.
conspiracy theory check. No way. No way. Just 5G.
5G.
Zero trust security.
Could you define that, please?
Zero. No more passwords. I think. I don't. Like getting rid of all the handshakes. Someone in IT over here. What?
Wait.
Oh.
But that's
Okay.
okay. I'm not gonna
Laborious,
argue.
but trustworthy.
Security, cybersecurity. That's a good thing.
I mean, cybersecurity is a
yeah.
good thing.
We need Corey Doctorow would know.
Even if it's flawed.
He's here. I'll ask him at the next
one.
Cool.
one. Internet of behaviors. No idea. Don't ask me.
Yeah. what
Help?
the hell is that?
Anyone know what that is?
Internet behaviors. It's
Well,
got a
internet
U in it.
behaviors,
So
we know what that
British
is. That's a
accent.
thumbs down.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Predictive analytics. It knows what you're gonna do before you do it. Oh God, yeah, no.
Hard.
Yeah.
3D printing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Heck yeah.
AI as a service. Dial up that AI, just get it to do whatever you want.
No, I don't.
Depends on what the service is.
Yeah,
You don't
it's
have
a
to write the
road to
code, you just
bad
use
thing.
it as
Yeah. I mean, like the healthcare possibilities are exciting.
Yeah, that's
but
the
a lot
thing,
of
right?
it
Healthcare
sucks.
is-
But we know where it will eventually.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, like in the context of capitalism, no.
Right. Exactly. Right there.
But I live in LA and it could solve traffic, so
I hear we have a giant drill for that.
Public
what I-
transportation.
And genomics. Genomics? Ooh, this one has some
Yeah.
like connotations to it.
It does.
I don't know what the connotations are, but it feels like
It depends on what in the context of capitalism.
Yeah. In the context of capitalism, then yes.
I mean, these are all no in the context of capitalism.
each one, yeah.
Just ask us about the context of capitalism, see what
Yeah.
you say.
Yeah.
there we go.
For medical uses only.
that was where I wanted to end up. So thank you.
Oh, okay. We did it.
That's exciting.
Down with capitalism.
Down with it.
That's great.
We'll start the chant at the end so they know. And then just to end on a positive note, put your futurist hat on. What is something happening today that gives you hope for the future? Technology or otherwise?
The death of social media.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, it's complicated. I wrote my psychic thesis essentially on like why in-groups on social media tend to get really mean to each other. So, you know, like not trolls coming in, but people like in a queer group starting to get real aggressive with each other about like what bisexual means. And so like, I think I'm seeing some developments. I wrote this in like 2015 and thought it would be an extinct phenomenon in a year, and boy howdy was I wrong. But I don't know, I really am starting to see with the fracturing of large, vast social media, like these smaller communities, which maybe because they're young are doing pretty good, but I hold out hope that people are learning how to like relate to each other in the context of online spaces, and I think there's a lot of positive outcomes to be found there, so I am hopeful about it.
Okay, with no explanation, I apologize. I do want to have people's questions, and they need to like, fill it in. No, you're okay. I asked way too hard questions, and I'm so sorry. So
We had a fun time.
yeah, it's great.
It's good.
It's great. We killed capitalism. It's fun.
Yeah.
You know what?
Be sure to buy their books.
The thing I'm excited about, I think, that makes me hopeful is I can feel humanity's technological mega brain moving toward actually figuring out how to solve the climate crisis. And it's slow, and it's like turning an aircraft carrier, to use that metaphor, but I can feel it starting to happen. And we're not there yet. There's so much to do, and there's still a lot of we all know, look outside, right? But I can see it starting, the gears are starting to mesh together. And so I think watching that happen is going to be wildly inspiring to see what we can do when we're faced with the latest existential crisis. So I think it could be really good.
To support that, I'd say that certain shifts in mindsets between generations, while I don't like Gen Z's music,
As a fellow Gen Zer, I'm a little offended.
there are some aspects that, the arc of history sometimes does bend toward justice. And I think seeing it in relation to the climate crisis gives a little bit of hope, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that makes me hopeful is the growing widespread acceptance of gender as a spectrum. Because when I grew up in the 70s and we didn't have it back then. So just seeing how swiftly that is, there's still obviously a hard road to go, but just seeing the progress that's been made so far is hopeful.
I want to be hopeful. I don't know if this is happening, but
You were the one complaining about no positive questions.
I know. But I'm from Phoenix, and there's a heat wave happening. And
Stay here.
I'll stay here for a few days, yes, to cool down. But I'm hoping that those who are climate change deniers will kind of start thinking a little more about the possibility that climate change might be real, since we've had almost over a month of over 114 degrees in a row for how long? So I'm hoping that this will, so it's not that this is the positive thing, but I'm hoping that this might lead to that positive thing.
Yeah. Phoenix, also the fastest growing city in America.
Yeah, it's royally.
It's boiling.
Wild. Do we have a mic somewhere? We've got 5 minutes. Who's got a fantastic question they've been waiting to ask? Okay, we're gonna go 1 and then 2. 1.
As a recent computational biologist who lives in that kind of technological bubble, why don't you think genomics is a good thing?
It's a concern on the level of eugenics, which unfortunately is much more alive today than we might hope. Like as someone who has been very sick, I am very hopeful for a lot the way technology and AI specifically is starting to feed into our ability to diagnose and treat, especially the things that like are complex conditions. But I am, again, like really concerned. I think Blackstone just bought a lot of DNA information. Like, I don't know, there's a lot to like look at and be like kind of wary of. So that would be my concern, and that's why it's hard to give like a blanket yes or no when you only have multiple choice questions.
Yeah, I'll support that. My brain just went to like, how, to what happens when that, so you can eliminate a lot of diseases. It can have immense benefits for huge portions of the populace. But then I thought about money and power, technological advancements being concentrated to the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. And that then being the eugenics, people who have kids that are way smarter and more talented and live longer than everyone else, and you create basically what's in my books. So I'm sitting here thinking like, I don't want to be right. But what's that? Yeah, and I like all the other stuff about genomics, but the gold stuff's kind of scary.
The eugenics, yeah.
That was the bad connotation of genomics.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have
Iron
one
Reigns.
more question right here.
So I'm coming through a bioengineering education, and I see this kind of sharp divide between like STEM and humanities. And the thing I admire most about the science fiction genre is this beautiful blending of technology and philosophy. It gives you guys the tools to imagine a future where these power structures can maybe be challenged, they can be reshaped through time. So how do we give those tools to the next generation of technology builders to help actually reshape those power structures? What could that look like?
Great question. Also, thank you.
Yes.
That was uplifting.
What a great audience. I mean, like, this is why science fiction fans are awesome, because we get computational biologists over there, great questions there. It's amazing. You guys are great.
I think honestly it's by literally creating stories that inspire the next generation of people who are smarter than us, who can actually do the development of things. But if you look at a lot of the billionaires who were inspired by science fiction stories, I would question some of the moral worth of those science fiction stories, because a lot of them are about achieve, heedless of consequences. The whole thing about do no evil at Google's hilarious, right? Right? And so I think it's really helping to create stories that inspire people in a kind of a morally sound way, or at least embrace a humanism that we like and understand, and seeing the negative consequences for achievement.
I think I have a really dumb example, but the show CSI was so popular for a long time, and then when it was gone for a while, and then when they rebooted it to CSI Vegas again, and I watched it because I'm into that kind of thing, but just watching them make science sexy and talk about in the episodes evidence, the only thing that matters is the evidence. The physical evidence, the scientific evidence. And I was just sitting there going, when's the last time I heard someone say that? It was just so, and I realized how refreshing, it was kind of sad how refreshing it was to see a show that just hammered on that again. It's like, nothing else matters to us but the evidence. What you think doesn't matter. It's just, if you can't prove it with scientific evidence, then that's it.
Also, I think that universities could help with that, where where the different departments could have more cross-pollination happening between them. I think like when it comes to storytelling and the sciences, having students from each of the departments working together and having classes where you bring it all together, I think that I think that could also help lead to the understanding that all of this is connected.
All right. I think that's a fantastic place to wrap it up. Takeaways: make science sexy. Down with corporations. Buy all of these authors' books. You can buy them if you can afford to. Buy them from independent bookstores. Please help keep those alive in your area, because they mean a lot to me personally, I guess. that's biased, but please do. But please support them. You can get books signed in half an hour at AA09 in the sales area. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Everybody.
Yeah.